Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 43, and our book is Darkness in the Blood by Guy Haley. The book is about the continuing adventures of Dante and Mephiston as they navigate the Imperium Nihilus. We posted several questions on our site, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning. If you haven't yet read Darkness in the Blood, go read the book, check out the site, and then come back to this post, as we're going to be talking about the book from start to finish in great detail. With that, let's dive in. Did you enjoy the book?
Oh, you know the answer to this. Yes, I loved it.
I do. I did not. And the joke that I made is that I hated it so much that I just left my copy in Arizona. My book copy is in a hotel in Arizona. So to be fair, I actually then had to go and buy the audiobook version of it so that I could finish it. So I don't know if that made me dislike. I really did not like this book at all. I liked
it. Would have mattered if you had the audio version or not.
I think you're right. I liked it better than Devastation of Baal.
Oh God!
But
is that the bar?
No, the bar would be I liked it better than Requiem Infernal. That's the bar. But I was just not a fan of this book. Sorry.
Well,
so what parts are really...
So as I told you over the phone, it's like, well, if you like Dante and Mephiston and the Blood Angels culture, you will love this book. If you don't, you will not. It is that simple. And I can't even say that you would like it if you had been reading the Mephiston trilogy as well, because I don't think you would have even liked the Mephiston trilogy to even get to this point to care.
Like, there was stuff when, and we'll talk more about this later, but there was stuff when he's going through his Primaris transformation where you were like, oh, like it's really explained well in his trilogy. And I was like, yeah, but I don't care. Mm-hmm. And here's what I'm struggling with right now, because I'm sure people are going to be like, then why are you reading the books? Because I don't like the Blood Angels, and the Blood Angels have become the guys. Like, I can't just close my eyes and not read them, because Dante is the regent. He is, in a lot of ways, the counterpoint to Guilliman for half the Imperium. Mm-hmm. If you want to know what's going on in Nihilus, you have to keep up with Dante and Mephiston and with the Blood Angels in general. And so, in the past, I used to see like Reddit posts where people were like, I hate the Ultramarines. Why is Robbie Bobby back? And I was like, your opinion's wrong and you can stop whining. And now I'm just saying I kind of sympathize with you now, because I'm trying to read this and I'm like, I don't like these people. I didn't give a flying. I didn't care when my beautiful hawk boy was killed. That's right. I said it. Let's just level set, shall we? I didn't care that Sanguinius was killed. Anyways, what parts of this book stood out to you? That's okay, because I didn't care that
Mortarion was killed. Not Mortarion. Your other boy. I don't remember his name. That's how little I think of him. I don't even remember his name.
Please stay tuned, because I'm sure shots are going to be flying left and right in this podcast.
What is his name? The Night Haunter.
I just said Conrad Kurz.
Oh, I didn't. Sorry. I didn't hear. I obviously have some block against that man.
I need Frick or Skywatcher Adept or someone to tell Carrie that I'm no longer speaking to her. Anyway.
We both know that's not true.
Yes, we do actually both know that's not true. Anyways, what parts of this book really stood out to you?
Oh man, like what? It'd be easier to ask like what did not. Like I loved Dante's telling a story. I loved Mephiston's his, as you put it, his walkabout going through the Rubicon Primaris. I loved his interaction with Racilis. Probably my favorite part, though, is, of course, I did love when Dante was basically kind of nipping QVO and everything. Just like, yeah, I don't trust anything. Okay, sure, if he says this, but I don't blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I don't understand.
those were actually the only chapters of the book that I really enjoyed, and it's because I continually enjoy Cuvo as a character. Um, I loved him in the great work, and I really liked when he talked with Dante because despite the fact that he's, and I think we talked about this in the great work, despite the fact that Cuvo is like AI,
Ish.
he's like walking that line between AI and like highly advanced servitor. There's an earnestness to him that I liked, like when he was talking with Dante, and this is like becoming Guy Haley's signature move. Is that these people just are starting to like spill out all of this little lore stuff, right? When he's like, oh yeah, like, there were the Thunder Warriors, and Dante's like, I don't even know what a Thunder Warrior is, and he's like, yeah. Anyways, and like when he reveals that he's like, yeah, actually, the Horus Heresy era legionnaires were basically functionally immortal, but you guys really aren't because the gene seed has degraded so much. And I found all of his little lore bits just fascinating. And my favorite scene, because it reminded me of the great work, is when he's getting ready to do the Primaris thing with Mephiston, and everybody's kind of looking at him strange. And he's like, yes, well, apparently the original version of me was very anxious, and Call has kept that. And it makes me love Call, like in kind of a creepy way,
Right.
because
No,
his friend was anxious.
right. No, I mean, there's a lot of that stuff, but I just kind of liked it how Dante just he wasn't swallowing the pills that Cuvo was trying to give him. He had just these counter things like, well, so he says this, but what about this? He just kept going back and forth. But probably my favorite part, the whole book, is when Dante tells everybody about the Rubicon Primaris, and he says, I'm not going to ask anybody to go through something that I won't do myself. So
Right.
basically, like, I volunteer as tribute. And Raceless is like, well, I don't think so, but I have another idea. It's just like, not you, but let's just throw Mephiston out there.
I did kind of laugh where they were like, and when Raceless goes to explain to him too, he's like, I can either shoot you in the head now, or you can die horribly painfully at the hands of Cuvo. Like, it, I laughed at that too, and it was like, let's not sacrifice anybody we care about. Let's use this guy.
But this guy's already a problem. So, the best case scenario, he comes out of it and he's able to control himself. Worst case, we kill him. Or he dies.
Yeah, but he dies on the table. Like, it's out of our hands. We'll mention this later, but there's a synchronicity there that I found kind of funny, actually. But I did like that scene as well. Like, I thought that was well played, and it made sense because at first, like, the idea of Mephiston going through the Rubicon Primaris I was kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, because again, plot armor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he made it work like in a natural way that would explain why they would want to use their most powerful librarian as a guinea pig. It was nice.
So like the only part of that I think you would possibly want the first two books in the Mephiston trilogy explaining that is that goes into his increasing powers, and that's part of what he's doing in this trilogy is just trying to find out what the hell is going on, like what has he become, type thing.
Right, which I picked up on, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. So we'll just use our guinea pig here. Like, oh, NBD. So,
well,
let's...
After how the second Mephiston book started, you probably would have read that first chapter, you would have closed the book, and be like, okay, this is some demon warp fuckery, and I don't have time for this. Because even I was like, dude, like, this is not right.
Okay, so can I say really quickly why I figured out why I don't like Mephiston? Figured it out. So I think it comes down to, I'm going to blame Graham McNeil. Because, two things. One, I will admit that I think I have some sort of like oddly misplaced loyalty towards Tigurius. So canonically, Tigurius was always the third most powerful psyker in the Imperium, right? Behind Magnus, behind the Emperor. And in that fifth book, when Uriel Ventress goes to meet with him, they talk about just how reserved this guy is, and that he's using he's using his psychic powers to flip through the pages of the Codex, But Uriel is like, oh my God, I've never been around somebody so powerful. And Tigurius kind of gives that speech where he's like, I of all people know how important it is to follow the rules. And it just made me think of, again, our favorite phrase from Dragon Age, magic is dangerous and people are flawed. And I feel as though Tigurius respects that the warp is dangerous and people are flawed. Whereas Mephiston is just like, he's like Yosemite Sam in the warp. Like when he's flying around and stuff, I was like, dude, you need to control yourself. This is not okay. Tigurius is judging you.
Well, I mean, just saying in the beginning of the second book, I think it's called Revenant Crusade, where Raceless has to, like, Raceless goes to, he interrupts him, whatever he is doing. I'm not going to describe what it is, because it's pretty awful. But he basically has to, like, call out to Mephiston's spirit, because it's not in his body right now, and be like, you need to stop. You're destroying the ship. Like, as in, psychic power is so powerful, it was actually crushing the hull. But Mephiston had no idea because he's off, you know. And then, and then when he gets back to his body, it always takes him a few minutes to figure out who he is, where he is. It's like, this is not okay. This is not okay.
Yeah,
but
not a fan.
So, I first came across Mephiston in James Swallow's Blood Angels Omnibus. The reason why I liked him is because when Dante gets word about Sanguinius Reborn, he's like, well, I need to go see what this is. And Mephiston's like, no. This could be a trap. Let me go. I'll be able to tell immediately. And when Mephiston gets there and sees the Sanguinius Reborn, I'm doing air quotes for the podcast people, he like actually has to put a hand over his mouth because he's trying not to laugh.
Right.
At that point, I'm like, I like this guy. But apparently that Mephiston no longer exists. Because
then that Mephiston no longer exists because they specifically said in here there was not not a speck or not a drop of humor in Mephiston. It was like,
well, anyways. Not only that, but you know, Dante, when he would talk about how he was very uncomfortable being around him, I was like, well, that makes me sad because they talked about in James Swallow's books about how close in friendship the two of them were.
That was old Mephiston. This is new Mephiston.
Well, then why did they reprint the books if that's old Mephiston?
Why does the Black Library do anything?
All right, fair.
Like, riddle me that, Batman.
Fair.
So we are going to talk a whole lot about Mephiston because I feel as though Mephiston is very central to a lot of the stuff that's going on in this book. So let's talk about some of the stuff that happened around Mephiston. So what do you think of Dante's approach to handling Daniken? Do you agree with it? Was that the right decision? Were you interested in his backstory?
Well, I was, because I had read, you know, Dante, and that Dante book really went through, you know, his time as a child as Luis, going all the way up into the ranks when he first became a captain. So I got kind of interested. And like, well, then how did he become chapter master? So when I found out this book was actually going to go through that, I was like, okay, that's great. And I thought it was an interesting story to tell Daniken, because I think Daniken had the same expectation that I did, and that it was going to be this wonderful, grandiose story. It had this amazing moment where it was like, you know, Sanguinius came down and anointed him, you know, something like that. A lot of sparkles, you know, something. And instead it was, he did it because there was nobody else who could be chapter master. That is the only reason why he was chapter master, because there's nobody else. And so Daniken was just kind of like, but it's not the same. I can't do that. And so he's just like, look, you're going to do this because I told you to. And you have to. You will do your duty. You will pull your shit together, man. And you will do this.
I actually kind of liked when, along those lines, one of the things I did like, because I was kind of bored in all of those chapters, but the one that I did like is where he starts talking about how he's like, you know, the stories about me aren't all true. And when he's like, you know, if you really look at some of the stories, I'm in two places at the same time. And I thought that was interesting because ultimately, as much as I love all of the chapter masters, right? I love Shrike. I absolutely love Marnius Calgar. Like, as much as we like them, they're still just dudes. Like super powerful, great leaders of men, but they're still just dudes. And so I liked the idea that Dante is this strong leader, but he's like, look, I'm not quite the demigod that I've been made out to be. I'm not Space Jesus. That was my dad. Um,
Well,
I liked that.
what I really liked about that, though, is that I thought that was such a great parallel to even Reboot. When he talked about, it's like, I think it was in the first book when he stopped correcting people.
Yes.
He's like, I'd never said that, or I wasn't even there. He's just like, whatever, this is what they need to believe.
Right.
And yeah, he's like, you look through all the texts about him. He's like, I never said that. I never wrote that. He just kind of had to let it go. And I think the same thing with Dante. Like, why bother correcting people all the time? Instead, just kind of they need that for whatever reason. They need that kind of legendary hero.
Need that. They need to have that beacon of hope. And I think above any other chapter, like obviously Marnius Calgar is revered before pre-Robbie Bobby for being the leader of the Ultramarines. But I think because Sanguinius is such an important figure, I mean, I make a lot of jokes about him being Space Jesus, but he really is kind of that messiah Jesus figure for the Warhammer 40k universe. So of course his chapter master is going to be extra important, and especially in Imperial Nihilus where things have gone plain shaped, you guys. So the idea that this guy, when he's like, yeah, like I understand what people say about me, but like let's use some logic here. I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. I did want to kind of grab Daniken and shake him.
It was kind of bringing him down on Daniken's level, though, because Daniken's like, I'm not that man that you think, I'm actually a coward. And he's like, yeah, well, let's look at my history. Yes, I've lived 1,000 years. That part is true. But, like you said, like
right.
a lot of this stuff is not true. So what does it matter what people say? And he just really wanted him just to kind of, pull on his big boy panties and put on a brave face and go do his duty, because honestly, if it was anybody else, the commissar would have had a bullet in his head by now.
Oh, absolutely. And I try to think about, and again, as much as I love my Ultramarines, like I would think about like if Cato Sicarius, well, maybe we got stuck in the warp, Cato Sicarius, but like I think about certainly just like Ragnar Blackmane. Like, just imagine if Ragnar Blackmane showed up there. He's not having a heart-to-heart with the guy. Cato Sicarius not having a heart-to-heart with the guy. This is like, we're going to grab you, shake you, and tell you to get out there and do your goddamn job. Because you're letting down the Emperor. The Dark Angels wouldn't have even seen him coming.
Oh, no, Dark Angels would have just killed him outright.
Just would have killed him. And honestly, I kind of think as much as I love my Raven Guard, I think they would have killed him too. They'd have just been like, no, the Imperial Fists too probably would have shown up and just be like, you're done.
I don't know. I think Marnius Calgar actually, he probably would have done the soft touch approach. He would have gone to the, I'm done with this shit, much quicker than Dante. Much quicker.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Marnius Calgar, like I think Marnius Calgar probably would have delegated that though. And like, Cato, just get this guy to listen, please. Like, get that guy to do his job. I found the approach, I don't know, I was torn by it because on one hand I know that it's definitely trying to humanize Dante, and one of the things I do like about Dante is that they don't have the luxury of being in the regular Imperium, right? So like in Nihilus, resources are limited. Mm-hmm. You don't have like, okay, this Lord Admiral's been removed, give me another one in here. Like, it's very, and he has I think he has a much better grip on that than a lot of people do. So I did like that.
He's also gone through watching most of his chapter be wiped out by the Tyranids, watching all of these successor chapters being completely wiped out by the Tyranids. So I think in his mind, he's just like, I just don't want to lose another person if I don't have to. Because kind of like what you said, that resources are finite, and that includes people. Yes, to be a man in this time is to be one of untold billions, but when you're cut off from the main empire, you're not maybe you're one of untold millions now instead of billions.
Right. Right. Or like one of untold like 2 billions as opposed to like 20 billion on the other side. Like
Right.
your resources are finite. And I think, and obviously,
And with the Tyranids coming through, there's even less.
oh, absolutely. And I do see that like Daniken and Dante were very much a parallel, right? Whereas Daniken saw this horrible death and was like, I just can't do this anymore. Dante has seen all this horrible death and is like, I need to preserve everything I've got. Like they reacted to this differently, which is one reason when Daniken's like, I don't understand why you're telling me all of these things. I just wanted to like go and grab him and be like, because he's drawing parallels between you. Be happy. Go do your job.
It kind of reminded me a lot of in the Dante book. There's this moment where Dante, he's not even a captain. I think he's like a lieutenant or something, but he's trying to protect all these people, and these Chaos Marines are coming in. And it gets to the point where he doesn't remember what happened. But he's alive. And everyone's praising him because all the Chaos Marines are dead. And he's like, okay, great, but where's all the people? And they're like, well, he's like, what happened to the people? And they're like, you succumbed to the red thirst. And he's just like, he is now beside himself that he ended up basically killing all these people and feeding on them so he could have the strength to overturn the Chaos Marines. And he struggled with that. He had a very hard time with that. Like, but you had to live. And he's like, that's not, like, he kept thinking that was not a good cost. It was too high.
Right. Too high of a cost.
Right. For what it took. But I know he couldn't tell that story to Daniken because, you don't really need to be discussing their flaw that they have to the Straits.
Pretty much. So let me ask you this, though. Like, in light, so we have all of this, right? Then in light with Juvenal's decision, do you think he made the right decision? Like,
no.
I
think he didn't give him a chance. I think Daniken was doing the best that he could at that time. And, for someone who goes through that kind of trauma, to still be sitting in that chair, still making all the right decisions the way he is, and still having the wherewithal to be like, dude, he tells Juvenal, like, know your place, sir. Like, not in front of everybody. I feel like, oh, hey, he's going to come back. But then Juvenal didn't even give him a chance. And the other problem I kind of had with that is that you are directly defying Dante. One does not directly defy the chapter master, or I should say, the Lord Regent of the Imperium Nihilus.
So I would have agreed with Juvenal had he done it in the beginning. If he, like, when Daniken was still just drinking every night and just hiding out, basically, if he would have killed him then, I'd have been like, I feel you, buddy. Right. Hard decision, but I feel you. But as soon as Dante gets involved, dude, like, if Dante believes in this guy, you've got to give him at least a chance. And I really hated that plot point because I was like, so this was all for naught.
That's kind of what I thought. But at least I had...
And there's no... He shot himself in the heart? Like, nobody's going to believe that. Come on.
Right.
And I don't know. And especially the only thing that I thought was a little bit poignant about it, where he gets back, is when Juvenal gets back on the bridge and he's like, all right, weapon batteries armed and ready. Let's get ready. We're going to shoot. We're going to do this. And he has everybody all hyped up. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh shoot, what if he's like, what if Dante is down there? Oh no. And then all of a sudden he realizes that, like, okay, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. And yeah, what if Dante, oh crap. And then he gets the message from Mephiston. And I was just like reading it. I was like, idiot.
Yeah, it always looks so easy from the outside until you realize.
Funny how that is.
Yeah, was it, heavy is the head who wears the crown?
Mm-hmm.
It looks so pretty up on their head and white, and anybody can do that. And then suddenly it's your decisions. Like, nobody really, when on the outside, you're not taking into the consideration of all the terrible decisions that people in charge have to make. Like, my biggest comparison to that is this movie, U571.
Yep.
which I've only seen once. I'll only see once. There's a heartbreaking scene, but where the
Horrible
captain
scene.
had to tell this guy to do it, and he had
Knowing
to.
that he would die.
He had to do it, and the guy went there and did it, sobbing the entire way. But if he hadn't done it, they all would have died. So, and that's always stuck with me. Just those decisions these people, these military commanders, have to make, like at a moment's notice. They have to put like all these needs over other things. Yes, you have orders,
Right. I actually thought of it more like,
you have these orders, but let's think about them. Just don't,
right.
because otherwise you could just get servitors.
It was him giving the orders too. So what it reminded me of was actually, in your opinion, like anybody's opinion on this movie aside, one of the scenes I really liked in The Dark Knight was with the two boats.
Oh my God.
Remember there's the business guy who's like, just blow them up already. Just do it. And the guy gives him the remote and he's like, yeah. And he grabs it to turn it. And then he's just sitting there and he's like, and then he hands it back to him. Because all of a sudden, when you're not with your finger on the trigger, it's so easy to be like, just do it. But then when you're given the trigger, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, oh no. And I did like that at least the Juvenile was like, what if he is alive? Like, oh no. Exactly, that pressure of command. And so I thought that the decision, if he had made it in the beginning of the book, I would have been like, okay, buddy. But yeah, at the end, it felt like a little too late. It felt a little selfish. And I was like, well, that was all kind of pointless then, wasn't it?
Well, not only that, but he's like, we have orders. Yes, you have orders. And yet you're defying an order to follow those orders.
Yeah.
Like, how's that making any sense? Although I will have to say it was kind of amusing. When Anakin's like, I know you're there. And he turns around because he's expecting him to have a gun. He's like, so you have a gun and my emisec. He's like, I need a drink. He's like, well, murder is difficult.
I actually loved that entire thing where he was like, yep, it is difficult work. And yeah, the whole time when he's just kind of like trying to talk him out of it. And yeah. So, okay, let's get to some of the meat of this, which is really, there's so much going on in this book. But let us begin at the beginning. Let's talk about the whole dark angel, light angel thing. And I want to talk about the symbolism of it, but also the prophecy that Mephiston is given during his Primaris walkabout.
Well, I will say that the dark angel, light angel thing. So this is the collector's edition. It brings this image to a different light, which this is Dante and this is Mephiston. But at the same time, it's like, oh, could this be the angel of blood?
Yep. So I liked the idea that there are these two angels who represent the nobility of the blood angels. So really more of like Sanguinius's honor and, again, space Jesus. And there's this darkness that resides in them and that they're constantly at war. And I liked the idea that every time one of them succumbs, the dark angel gets a little bit stronger. Mm-hmm. And that they're constantly in this dead mate. I liked that conceptually. But so what do you think about the prophecy? Basically that, look, yeah, your legion's basically doomed. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they're doomed.
Well, okay. They've been kind of saying that, though, for a while. Like some Chaos Gods are really interested in recruiting the Blood Angels to their cause for obvious reasons.
Really interested.
But okay, so they're doomed. Okay. When is that going to happen? It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's probably going to happen. It could happen, when Games Workshop closes. Oh, well, there it happens. All done. It could happen in Warhammer 50k, 60k. It could just be true. On a shelf somewhere. They're doomed. Doom. But, do
we need to sing the Doom song?
We do need to sing the Doom song.
I uh, I don't know how I felt about it, and I really didn't know how I felt about Mephiston.
But he's now the Dark Angel.
That he's now the Dark Angel.
It makes sense.
Until he burns out, basically. And it really reminded me, and again, because I know everybody here, I think, knows my opinion on the fact that there's only one Matrix movie. But in the second Matrix movie, when they're kind of describing the whole point of Neo and the One, right? And they're basically like, yep, this happens every once in a while, and you run your course, and then we just reset, and then eventually another one comes up, and this just keeps kind of happening. Like, it made it, that's triggered. It triggered me with this idea that, okay, so you're going to hold the Dark Angel in you, and, you know, until you turn into a monster and they kill you, and then we'll just have to find somebody else to hold the Dark Angel in them. But will they be able to? I don't know.
But I also am curious about what all that means. So he's now that Black Angel.
Does that mean they don't get the Black Rage
That's
anymore?
What I was wondering, is the Rage now cured? Because he is the only one who has survived the Rage and no longer has it. I mean, because they talk about, you know, Lamartez, that he survived it, but yet he still has it. And he just has these moments where he's able to be lucid. He's actually able to come back and forth a little more easily, but he's still suffering from the Black Rage. You still don't go let him just go hang out in the streets.
Right. But so one of the things I thought was very interesting, and again, this came from Cuvo, which is where he's like, yeah, we thought that we fixed the Black Rage. And Dante's like, you didn't. And he's like, yeah, we think it's more of a spiritual affliction. So I did like that kind of synchronicity of then Guy Haley basically saying, like, yes, this is a full-fledged spiritual affliction. And now we have it contained. So that's kind of maybe the implication of that. Now, I can't imagine, because the Black Rage is just such a good dramatic tool for the Blood Angels. I can't imagine them ever abandoning that.
Right.
Would be very interesting. So, like, or maybe it's like a proximity thing, like a blunter, right? So if he goes around and hangs around with Lamart and the rest of those dudes, does the Black Rage just dissipate from them? Like, is this how you get these guys back?
I don't know. I think it's left open a lot of questions.
It's interesting, though.
And now I'm really interested in reading the third book in the Mephiston trilogy, City of Lights, because I was told that comes after this book. Because I guess apparently they reference a lot of things in here, like, oh, I don't know, that he's now a Primaris, which probably would have been like, if I'd start City of Lights.
You'd be like, when did that happen?
Yeah, so I'm interested if they delve into that at all in City of Lights. What really is coming in that? But like you said, the Black Rage is like so central to the Blood Angels.
It's canonical. Like, that is one of like the defining attributes.
And to me, that's actually one thing I was kind of like, as sad as that is, I just think it's like so incredible that, you know, what Horus did to Sanguinius was so awful. It's imprinted on the gene seed on them. Like, that's just it.
I actually, and you know that I do not like the melodrama of the Blood Angels, and that's one of the reasons that I don't like them, is I really do hate that type of melodramatic tragedy. But I love that concept.
Right.
I love the concept that, as you said, what happened was so awful. So awful. It's like permanently messed up your line. Mm-hmm. 10,000 years later, you guys are jacked up from this. And I did kind of like when Dante describes when he kind of starts like teetering into the Black Rage, when all of a sudden he's in another battlefield on another ship storming towards a brother. I was like, oh geez. And that's one of those scenes that every time I see it,
I got nervous. I was like, oh my God, is this it for Dante? Is this how he goes? That's awful.
No, because plot armor. We need Dante. He's too fabulous. But I did like that concept. But yeah, it's really up to, because here's the thing about it. If he is now like the Black Rage blunter, that's very interesting. And I will really like that concept. But if it turns out that no, he's not, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Maybe that's what City of Light's about. before he finds out what the Black Angel actually is.
That could be true. Yeah. So, who do you think Mephiston saw in his walkabout? Was that really Sanguinius?
At this point, why not? Why not? And the reason why I say that is because it was obviously a test. And then when this angel
very much so,
this angel of blood, when he like sheds the blood and becomes this huge magnificent angel, and he's like, oh my god, I didn't know it was you. He's like, well, I'm not Sanguinius. Sanguinius is dead. I totally see that's something Sanguinius would say. Like, don't keep looking for me in the warp. Like, I am dead. You all have to go forward on your own. Like, stop, just, I am dead. You can't look for me anymore. You can't worship me. Just move on. And I totally see that's something Sanguinius would say, because that's kind of what he would do with his chapter in the Horus Heresy. He would tell them that they would need to forge ahead and be on their own, that they couldn't always lean on him. He's like, I will always love you. You are my sons, but you have to do things on your own.
Well, and they've dealt with that where he knows he's going to die at the Siege of Terra. He knows. And he's like, got to do what I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of me was thinking, and this is one of the things that I was like, well, that's very interesting. If his rage and his just sense of injustice and hatred and betrayal of what Horus did can be carried down through the gene seed, is it possible that that nobility, that sense of sacrifice, that I know I'm going to die and I just got to do what I got to do? Like, is it possible that somehow is carried along and has lived somehow, that maybe it's not Sanguinius,
mm-hmm.
but it is that aspect of him and that emotion of we need to do what's best for our brothers and we need to take care of our brothers. Like the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely. Kind of. But that was something that was really delved into in James Swallow's books. So whether that's been retconned or not, that's something that they really, really went into, is that even though our brothers are part of the Black Rage, we do this, as soon as we see that happen, they do a ceremony for them. They do what's best for them. They really try to do what is absolutely best for them at all
mm-hmm.
times. And when they see someone about to dive into, succumb to the Black Rage, they practically stop whatever they are doing to save them from succumbing, whether it means that they end up falling in front of a bullet or whatever. So I think there is also a lot of that, because none of them want their brothers to go through the Black Rage, and they will do anything to stop it if they believe that they can.
And they're very revered. They're almost like the opposite of the Dark Angels with the Fallen. Whereas that's our dirty little secret that we never talk about, and we're super ashamed of them, and we don't not even everybody knows about them. The brothers who have fallen to the Black Rage, they're not like, they don't advertise them and broadcast it, but they all know about it. And they do all know this is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this sort of like this reverence for them, that this is something that's awful and terrible. And I think part of it is because, as you said, this could happen to any one of us.
Right.
So, it's not just like, oh yeah, our brother fell and dumbass. No, it's that happened and it could have been me.
I think the only one that they've ever said was an idiot for falling to the Black Rage, and that is in David Annandale's Mephiston book. And I don't remember his name, but basically he knew Calistarius. He knew Calistarius had fallen to the Black Rage, and he cannot handle Mephiston. And when Mephiston actually and he actually was looking for, one of their sacred relics, and it had been corrupted, but he couldn't see it, as always.
Was it a chalice?
It was not a chalice, actually. It was something else. But Mephiston was able to see what it was. This guy was accusing him of, actually being, demon spawn and kind of revenant and everything. But when it turned out Mephiston was right, he couldn't handle it to the point he's like, I'm just going to let myself succumb. And just did it right there. And I thought Mephiston's like, what a waste. And that's probably the only one I've
Right.
ever seen. And that's true, just because, I just can't handle this reality in front of me that I could have possibly been wrong. I'm just going to succumb to the black rage. Oh, okay, boy. You go right on ahead.
Calm down, son. Um, so I actually kind of worried about that in the beginning. Do you remember when those two guys were going through the ship and the one guy is like, there's a life sign up here. I'm going to go follow that. And his commander is like, no, don't get back here. And then he gets up there and he's like, oh, gene stealers. Um, because it is always gene stealers. I was actually a little worried that right there, I was like, if this guy follows to the Black Rage to deal with these gene stealers, that guy's a dumbass. But he didn't. And actually, when that whole thing was happening, I was like, what is the point of this? And then they looped it in the end. It's like, oh, okay.
It all makes sense. And
It all
actually,
makes sense now.
And actually, that guy who, Teus,
Mm-hmm.
there's a short story about him in the back of the collector's edition.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. No, I liked the character. I was just like, bruh.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. I thought it was so funny when he's, because, he is one of the Primaris. And his, the guy in charge of him is also a Primaris, but he's been a Primaris longer, knows how things run. And the whole time he's just like, he's always barking orders at me. And he's not even from Ball. Like, I'm from Ball. I know how this works. Like, yeah, that's true. You would fit better into the culture than he would, because he made it sound like he was one of the vat grown.
Oh, okay. I did like, though, that originally there was kind of, and it might be because of the Black Rage revelation, like originally there was kind of this, those are not Blood Angels. Those are Ultramarines wearing Blood Angel armor. And Gabriel Seth was like, without the flaw, like these guys aren't even us. But in this book, it felt like they were more just like, okay, there's these Primaris guys over there. Like they felt more like still kind of outsiders, but accepted outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. I thought that was a nice progression, because I think we've talked about before, one of the things that's getting a little tiresome to me is the whole OG versus Primaris Marines thing. I totally understand it would be a thing. Totally understand. But I am getting a little tired of that as a plot point. So I really did like that they were just kind of like, yeah, Primaris.
Well, I mean,
take it the Black Rage. Who knew?
I mean, kind of like the Brothers of the Scythe. They're like, these are going to save our chapter because we've lost so many in the recent devastation. So I think you got some of that. But also, I think the Rubicon is going to help a lot of chapters deal with the Primaris, for those who choose to go through it and are able to go through it.
I did like, well, what's the success rate? About 60%. Less for your chapter. I was like, oh, good odds.
Well, I mean,
funny.
But this was the first one where we actually got to see what they do in this. Because in the Spear of the Emperor, they didn't, we knew that was something awful. Like, she was talking about, she could hear his bones growing. She heard the snapping, and it was his bones growing. But this was like the first one where you see that they literally dissect the person. Like, talk about, they're removing the skin and putting it in a vat. I'm like, I really don't need this imagery right now.
They had described it in the year, and so I know that this book came out first, but we read the Uriel Ventros story first, and they had described it in that. I much preferred Uriel's Walkabout, but I liked, like, they described it, and I was like, this sounds horrible. And it helped. I think it helped because you're right. With Honorata wasn't allowed to be in there because she was a human. And then Amadeus had been rocked a little too hard.
Thank you for saying that.
I'm sorry. But he was basically out for the procedure. So we have no idea what was going on internally for him. We just knew. And by the way, you guys, that is a scene that is like still haunts me. Every now and then I'll think about it and just be like, when she talked about how it sounded like wood creaking.
Oh, yeah, it was the bones
and
growing.
It was just bones. That haunts my dreams. I don't mind telling you that. But like, it sounds so awful. And with Mephiston, they really kind of leaned into it, I think, because he's so gory as is. But
Well, I mean, to be fair, the beginning of the second Mephiston book started very similarly with his skin not on him, and it was just kind of hanging out in the air, whatever. He's just sitting on the throne, just like he's wearing his flayed man armor, but it's not wearing his armor. That's actually what it is. I was like, well, he's kind of used to his skin just kind of peeling off and then coming back on. No big deal. It's Tuesday.
Like that scene in Hellraiser.
I never saw
She
Hellraiser.
comes to the bed.
Never saw it.
If you've seen Hellraiser, you're probably going, from that scene. Yeah, this person comes through the bed to be reborn, and they're like all skinned. Kind of like an Event Horizon. Anyways, that's the one thing I will say is that I did not like his walkabout, but I do find the Primaris process fascinating. And they do, at least it's not just like a pill or a shot that you take and hey, get a 60% chance of your survival. I mean, this is hardcore surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even just like they have to like break open the chest to put in the Belisarian furnace because it sits between the hearts. I mean, they have to do a lot. Like when they talk about, like you could see his brain.
Yeah. Oh, that part I had
it's a very
hard time with. When they talked about, basically they cut off that whole part of his skull.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think with the Blood Angels books that I read that I'm used to, gory stuff and vitae everywhere, but I'm really not. I'm really not.
You know what? There was not a lot of vitae in this book. Not as much as in Devastation of Baal. Like there was some vitae in this, but there wasn't nearly as much. And because I was looking for it.
I got my dose when they woke up Dante early.
Yes, I would agree with that. But like later in the book, like it only gets mentioned like 5 or 6 times, which like
I think because
I don't know.
I think because Guy knew he was going to treat us to this surgery, and that was like all anybody could handle. So I actually liked Mephiston's walkabout, and I think
I could see that if you liked the character, you would.
Because I really liked him facing off with Callisterius in the mirror. That is what really, really grabbed me. That and talking
it had never-ending story vibes.
Yeah, exactly. And also him talking to not his father, but a man who I guess had some hand in raising him. It was because that's actually the closest we've ever gotten to Mephiston's past, like Callisterius or not, like really way before all that. So that to me was very interesting, and I loved Mephiston just kind of comparing and contrasting, looking in the mirror and seeing both himself and then Callisterius and seeing the differences, the slight differences, how they're the same face but not.
Right. Yes, I would agree with that. I got strong never-ending story vibes with that one, and which I loved that movie as a kid. So like, I liked that I liked it conceptually, but I think because I don't, and I told my husband this too, that like I even said to him, I was like, I bet you Carrie loved this scene because you have a connection with Mephiston, which I didn't, and like the death of Uriel Ventress.
Well, we both have a very strong connection with Uriel.
Right. That one hit me so hard in the feels, but I could see that if you didn't have a connection with Uriel Ventress, or if you didn't really care that much, first off, what's wrong with you? But second off, like you probably read that story and were like, okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like I felt bad because he's having this spiritual moment. And for me, I was just like, meh. But again, I was like, I bet you Carrie loved this.
And so I did.
Where does he go from here, though?
Well, I'll tell you after I read the next book.
Okay, listen up, bitch. But like, okay, so you're now a Primaris library. You're the first Primaris, or OG turned Primaris Blood Angel. You're like the first librarian of them, and BT Dubs, you're now the prison, not the prisoner, but the prison for this malevolent force, and all of your friends are eventually going to turn from you and hate you, and they're not going to know why. Again, very reminiscent of a Blunter.
I actually have that very strong vibes, like, oh, just kind of like the pariahs. Or
So
the.
he's a pariah of the Blood Angels, pretty
Mhm.
much. So where does he go from here?
He goes into his sarcophagus. And
Well, of
hangs
course,
out.
because they always go into sarcophagi.
This is what they do.
It's just kind of their thing.
I don't know. It kind of makes me sad that they've decided to really push the uh, being a hermit route, especially because of the friendship and deep relationship he and Racelis have. So I'll be really sad if Racelis can't even stand to be around him anymore, because Racelis is his biggest advocate, biggest supporter.
Right.
Yes, he volunteered him as tribute, but he's still like,
It was out of love.
he's always been there for Calistarius, and he's always promised him that if anything went bad, he would be the one. And now Dante has said, I will also, between him and Racelis will be taken care of. I think Dante's like, I'd rather do it than let Asterath do it, because Asterath wants to do it like yesterday. But
That was kind of interesting. I was like, there's so many emotions when he wakes up, because Asterath is like, kill him now, kill him dead, done, gone. Raceless was kind of like, I don't know. It seems like him, like he was on the fence, and Dante, of course, is like, it's fine, we got this. Like, so many emotions. So, but given those reactions right there, right then and there, where does he go? What is his purpose? Other than he's holding this black angel in himself, what will his purpose be and his place be in the chapter with all these emotions and this prophecy? And
it's very strange, because as the chief librarian, it's partly his job to help train other librarians, and obviously he can't do that now. It's probably going to have to go to Racelis to handle all that, since he's the epistolary, I think his title is. But it'll have to go to him. But it's kind of sad in a way, because yes, he's been Mephiston, the Lord of Death. No one wants to be around him as it is. So it's just kind of like, we've just really kind of leaned into that and made it really, that's what he is now. He's almost the angel of death in many, many ways. Because he even talks about it at the end. He's like, I have the power to end it all right now, but I won't.
when he killed the patriarch and he stopped that message from getting out. Okay, as much as I hate the Tyranids, that was a scene where I was like, go you. But it is always Tyranids. In Gene Stealers. I feel like the editing process at the Black Library now is like, this is a great novel. We like the direction, but there's no Gene Stealers in it.
Well, but
they gotta have somebody take those Levi's.
But they were still in the sector.
Yes. This one has an excuse for it, but like, I'm over the Gene Stealers, guys. I'm so over them. In fact, in that beginning chapter, when they say that the Gene Stealers pop up, my first reaction was, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, we even had Gene Stealers in the last book. It was very minimal, but we still had them in there.
As I said, this is a great book. Love the direction. Could you put Gene Stealers in?
They're so hot now in Imperium Nihilus.
They're so hot right now. Pretty much. So again though, like, is his purpose in the chapter now just to become this hermit and know that I hold the Black Rage or I hold this Black Angel in, and that's pretty much it? Like, I'm making the ultimate sacrifice. Can somebody like that just exit stage left?
Well, so one of the things that he's trying to do in his trilogy is to try to understand why he was able to survive the Black Rage, so that maybe he could teach it to others. Although I don't think everyone wants to be like him in the end, but still, they just kind of, want that. But so I don't know if he's going to continue doing that, because he's even said when he woke up, he's like, I'm Mephiston, but I'm not Mephiston. I was like, oh great, we have another name change. Like, just need more
I
names.
actually thought the same
Are we gonna
thing. I was like, not another name.
are we gonna collect names like the Custodes now? I mean, come on. But so I don't know. So I'm really, like I said, I'm really interested in City of Light. I will be sure to let you know as soon as, but like what resolves from that. Of course,
Yeah.
knowing Games Workshop, maybe it doesn't mean anything. You know?
So let's talk about one of the more interesting things in here. At this point, I think most of the chapter masters have been confirmed to have gone through the Rubicon Primaris. It's interesting to me that in this book,
Azrael has not.
does that surprise anybody?
I actually
Asking for a friend.
was surprised that 2 captains have gone through the Rubicon of the Dark Angels.
Right, but Azrael, that doesn't surprise me as much because he has like just way too many secrets, y'all. But like given the number of people who are going through it, I was really surprised that they didn't put Dante through it. So, and at the end of it, Dante's kind of like, I think I should definitely do the thing because I don't know if you guys knew this, but he's kind of old. But Mephiston is like, you shouldn't. Don't do the thing. So will he? Will he or won't he?
I'm kind of leaning on Dante's side of it that he should, because what does he have to lose? Because he even talks about, he's like, I'm so tired. And I don't want to feed on people anymore to not be so tired. Like, my wounds aren't healing. Like, you know, obviously we're not supposed to live this long because seriously, like, what is the retirement plan of a space marine? It's until death. And somehow he has
Death.
not only, I mean, we don't know how old he is. We just know he's been chapter master for 1,000 years. So
Right.
we could probably
Yeah,
add
he
on.
could have been absolutely.
He
A
could
couple
be,
hundred.
Oh, he could be 1,500 years old as far as we know.
Right.
So I'm like, yes, they're supposed to be immortal, but they had no plans. They had no idea they would live this long.
Well, the Horus Heresy guys were functionally immortal. These guys really aren't supposed to be. And I actually wondered if, like, at the end there, when he talks about, like, how he's like, I have to feed on so many people now. I was like, I wonder if Reboot would have been so keen to give you Regency if he knew what was going on behind the curtain. Like, he sees you wearing the mask and he's like, God, you remind me of my brother. And we already know that Reboot, along with most of the Primarchs, just revered Sanguinius and just loved him. So I wonder if part of it was like, God, you remind me so much of my brother. You've got this. You seem like a decent dude. Like, I wonder if Dante would have said, so here's, like, let me explain to you how I'm walking around. Like, I wonder if Reboot, and I don't know, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Reboot would have been like, gross, but do what you got to do. Or if it would have been like,
So the first time, so Dante actually had abstained for a long time, and it wasn't
very long time.
It wasn't until the end of the Dante book when his
Right.
his equerry, like, sacrificed himself and was like, please. And then it's almost like kind of spurned something else that he has to. So at the time, like, he wouldn't have told Reboot because he's like, well, it's just that one time. This had one relapse. It's just one drink. Just one drink, man. I'm fine.
Right. Still though, like, I'm not sure. But like, even if
I don't know.
if he had worded it as a relapse, even like, wait,
You know, because I
need to
don't
find relapse.
I don't know if Reboot knew about the flaw, because there's this one short story where Sanguinius talked about how he never understood why his sons have this issue with this thirst, that they've always been trying to figure it out. So I don't know if it was well known amongst anybody else about it. So
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
I don't think Reboot, there's any way he would have known it. But another reason
Well, because they all kind of kept those flaws close to their chest. All of them did.
Right.
Right? Like, the Wolfen weren't really well known. And they all got secrets except for Robbie Bobby.
And the
and
Imperial
Vulcan.
Fists. They don't got any secrets. Do the Iron Hands have secrets?
Except that he does kill Alfarius, which is actually one of the funniest scenes, and I can't remember which Siege of Terra book it is, when they're all talking about like how could because they're talking about Fulgrim, and they're like, can you even believe that one of you would kill their brothers? And then Malkador just looks at Rogel Dorn and he's like, anyway, nice weather we're having today. Like, it's straight up this like, but the good news is he probably didn't really kill Alfarius anyways.
That was actually that whole thing like between who killed Alfarius, if anybody did. Was it Dorn? Was it Reboot? Kind of reminds me of scene in Clue. Professor Plum is like, wait, if that was the butler, then who did I kill? It's like, if you're Mr. Body, then who did I kill? It's like, my butler.
Oh,
nuts. Just,
I love that scene.
Oh, that kind of reminds me of that whole I mean, that's what I could totally see with Alfarius. So who did I kill? My butler.
Oh, exactly. I actually, yeah, I love that movie in general.
Yeah.
But that especially. I don't know. Like, does he need to become Primaris? Does that stop this? I don't know. I don't know that I think he should be Primaris. Like, does that though? Is that his final form? Like, is that going to be the thing that basically makes him Diet Sanguinius? Like, he's not. Sorry. So you know what I mean? Like, is this the thing
especially
that
everybody, so many people believe, like in his own chapter, that he is Sanguinius reborn?
What if Mephiston went through the Primaris and he gets to host the Dark Angel in him, which is like all their darkness and their rage and the flaw, but then Dante goes through the Primaris and he ends up hosting that golden vision of like, I am the purity and like the goodness with Sanguinius, and that's what happens, and that's how he becomes Diet Sanguinius.
But I thought that the golden angel was actually the Sanguinor.
It is, but you know what I like? Sorry, I didn't mean the golden language. I didn't. We're not going to go into that. So, but that's the thing. Anyways, but what if it is like that concept of like the vision that Mephiston had, the Sanguinor? Like, what if that'd be kind of cool, actually. But so if that's the case, I think they would need to wait.
I kind of like that, actually, especially when they talk about,
like that.
They emphasize like many times, like, how Dante has met with the Sanguinor more than any other blood angel, which I think is one reason why they believe he's Sanguinius reborn. I mean,
yes, very much so.
I can't believe the Sanguinor is something to do with Sanguinius, like he's some essence or something. It's the only thing to me that makes sense. Much as I can make sense of the blood angels.
Because you looked at the flowchart.
Okay, they're not as crazy as the Dark Angels, but it's not too far from it. They don't have as many secrets. They're just kind of, their culture is interesting. I'll put it that way. But I would
actually.
I would kind of like that. But so Dante's the light, Mephiston's the dark, and you have to have them both together. To keep that brotherhood whole.
To keep that balance. And then they just go to the opposite sides of the universe.
Which just,
like Macbeth and Demona. Gargoyles references. Yeah, I would like that if the Sanguinor like possessed him. I'd be here for that.
That would
say
you would actually read another Blood Angels book for that.
I'm gonna have to. Y'all, actually, speaking of that, I'm gonna have to, even though they're Blood Angels adjacent, because our next book is The Reverie by Peter Fahavari, which, oh god, you guys, I'm gonna show how old I am because the text on here is so. It's the Angels Resplendent.
Okay, so the text on the back is terrible because it's super tiny and it's that light yellow.
It is.
Oh, no, it's actually more of a darker yellow. Like on the,
yeah, you can see, like, you can barely.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'm also just old. Like, I turned 40 and my daughter will be like, Mom, you need to look at this. And she'll put stuff in my face and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm actually now just like.
Turn an angle.
At least I'm not. Yeah. I haven't got to where like my dad was before he wore glasses, where he's just.
Oh, I'm like I'm like still holding it here, but I'm getting to where I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be that asshole with my arm out there. But anyways, so we are giving Peter Fahavari another chance. Also, red pages.
Last chance.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
But we are gonna read. This is actually gonna be our second Warhammer horror novel, also by Peter Fahavari. I hope this doesn't burn you on the horror line. Anyways, the Angels Resplendent, though.
Is
So
this the
more
Resplendent,
Blood Angels.
or is this the
And-
other guys?
And depending on how soon the next book comes out, we might get more Blood Angels. Anyways, guys, please save me. Black Library, please save me from the Blood Angels.
You don't have to read Asterath. I can read that on my own.
I low-key feel like I kind of do, though, because I have like a whole other conversation. Also, I'm a glutton for punishment. But, so, definitely join us for the reverie. Should be fun. See if we like Peter Fahavari on the second try. This is like such a vapid commentary, but the cover art is gorgeous. Really gorgeous. Definitely within my idiom.
Yeah, I'm not into the skulls. Everything else is pretty, though.
I really am. And
I
I
know.
I really dig the cover art, so.
It's really weird to say I'm not into skulls, and yet I read Warhammer 40k, so...
Which is like the skulling.
That's kind of within their idiom. Actually, that is their idiom.
It's a whole idiom. Skulls are cool.
Skulls are
Like
cool.
somebody was like, you know what's awesome? Skulls and angels.
The Skull Angels.
It really is just like the heavy metal universe on paper. We've got Vikings. We've got vampires. We got Mongols on motorcycles. And I say that lovingly, obviously, very lovingly. But I mean, like the Mall and Blues Brothers, this place has got everything.
That's true.
Want to take us out, Carrie?
I sure will. So thank you all so much. You listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Darkness in the Blood by Guy Haley. Be sure to join us for our next book, The Reverie by Peter Fahavari. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those good things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Don't forget, we also have a Patreon where we offer 2 different tiers of content for your viewing and listening pleasure. You can learn more about that at patreon.com/WH40kbookclub. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. So please stay a while and read for McCrack. And vote for Dante. He's the hero we need.
Get you some burgundy.
That's not burgundy, woman.
Get you some fire hydrant red.
There you go. Much better.
I love the color. I love the colored stuff, so. Good night.
Good night.